So first thing we want to do is make sure we understand what the parent graph of number 8 is. Hi, Nick. And what we'd like to do is graph that parent graph. So notice the parent graph is going to be y equals sine of x. So let's put a few points on the graph where they belong. Sine of x starts at 0, passes through 0 at pi, and also I'm going to try to make this bigger for us. Hang on here. Okay, let's see if this size works a little better for us. We'll put a dot here at 0, 0, a dot here, and a dot here. I know these always get really messy because we're using the iPad. And then we just connect this. Here's our parent graph to start our thinking process. And then we'll finish the top piece there. So now that we know what the parent graph is, we want to talk about changes as we're graphing some of the new one. So as we look, let me grab a new color here. Number in front, -2, what does that affect? Ooh, those are German flag colors. That is your amplitude, right? So our graph is going to be twice as high. The negative sign, of course, will cause a flip. Maybe we should write that here too, so we don't forget that. Second thing we could have a look at is the number here at the end. That number, of course, I think we realize will cause a vertical shift. This is a down 1 shift. That looked like the number 1 a little bit. Okay, phase shift. Phase shift is this number right here. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I went right over the top of it. Let's erase that. I wanted to use a highlighter there. There we go. Okay, just choose the right tools as I'm working here. So phase shift, we know that a plus will shift things to the left, don't we? So this will be a shift to the left of pi over 4. And as I'm looking back at my graph, pi over 4 is 1 box. So we've got a number of changes going on here. Last thing we should think about today will be the C number, and that is the number in front of the X. Now notice we got nothing but a 1. That C number affected the period. 2 pi over C tells us what the new period is. Since that C is a 1, nothing is going to change here. We're going to have a period of good old 2 pi. So now we've got some details that help us chart our graph. And we can sort of decide to go where we would like to. So from the parent graph, I will go back and see if I can find that color I used before for the highlighter. There it is. So what will that 2, what effect will that have on your graph? Well, the amplitude will be 2 now. So instead of being at a height of 1, I'll be at a height of 2 and a depth of -2. So my graph now is twice as high as it was before, isn't it? Now here's just the first piece. That is only the change for 2. Now, what else actually happens with the negative sign? Everything is flipped. So instead of being a height of 2 like we have, we will have actually a depth of -2. So I changed my orange slightly. This graph will flip upside down upon itself. So it'll be something like this is what we're actually starting to see for our -2 change. And that's a very sloppy continuation. I would suggest that you continue to plot those points where they occur, actually at pi over 2, isn't it? And pi, -pi over 2, 2 pi, a height of 2, to get a better representation of this curve, right? So that takes care of the changes. This dark one is -2 sine of x. Okay, we've taken care of the -2. Now let's bring that -1 change in. And I've got multiple graphs here to help us out. So what will that -1 do? It'll take every point on the dark gold graph and shift it downward 1. So I'm just starting at the common points here, and I'm shifting down by 1 at the appropriate x values. Notice that sort of turns the new center of our curve, still twice as high as far as amplitude goes, but now things are shifted down by 1 from the gold colored graph. And all of my sort of center line dots that used to be on the x-axis are now shifted down by 1. Let's keep a little bit of accuracy going here, shall we? Oops, that's here. And then this was a height of 1 here, and we're back to my 0 line, which is now negative 1. Okay? So we're getting closer. This is now the graph of negative 2 sine of x minus 1. I've taken care of 2 of those changes. And let's see, compare that to the normal sine curve, which would be something like this. We've got a number of the major changes already taken care of. Now the last change we have to bring into play is the phase shift. And I noted that above earlier in green, so I'll go to green. Phase shift was plus pi over 4, and we said that'll shift each and every point on my nearly final red graph here, pi over 4 units to the left, which means I'll start at my 0 line here on the y-axis. This red point shifts to the left, pi over 4, that's 1 box. Everything I have shifts 1 box to the left. Everything I have shifts 1 box to the left. Every point I have shifts 1 box to the left. This is the easy last change to make. And now if I connect my green, and I'll go over this a few times, curve, this is the final graph. And now I have my final version, right? This is y equals negative 2 sine of x plus pi over 4 minus 1. Let there be rejoicing.